Ladies and gentlemen, we haven't talked about Washington, D.C. in a while, but D.C. is going to definitely take the L for this story. But before I give you the details and talk about these horrible parents here, I'm going to give a disclaimer because I don't want to upset anybody. If you got thin skin. But if this is your first time here, you might find my content controversial or offensive. The information is coming from credible sources. You can look them up. My video commentary is also going to contain my personal opinions about the facts of this story. The point is to use it as a cautionary tale in hopes of preventing these tragedies. Viewer discretion is advised, and that is your official disclaimer. If you need to, pause it on that moment, and you can read that. Let's talk about these two dummies on my screen here. Washington, D.C. A father and a stepmother. Let me say that again. So it sounds like biological father and stepmother. Unless they were married, I'm not going to call her a stepmother. But nonetheless, dad's girlfriend of a 5-year-old girl are now facing charges related to the child's death in Capitol Heights. And I think I have a picture of that angel. Should come up here in just a moment. But officials, and I'm getting this information from WUSA9.com. Thank you for the article. Officials reported earlier this week that 5-year-old Pradeline-Delinois, see if I can get her face, right here. Look at this angel. Look at that baby. 5 years old. It's my birthday. She just had a birthday. Pradeline's name is Pradeline, Delinois, Delinois. I hope I pronounced her name correctly. I might not have, so my apologies if I didn't. But she was found unresponsive and taken to a DC hospital for help. Pradeline died from her injuries due to blunt force trauma, according to the Office of Chief Medical Examiner in DC. So that's official. The Prince George's County Police Department, PGPD, began investigating Pradeline's death as a homicide. Days later, PGPD arrested Pradeline's father, Pradel, Pradel, Delinois, who's 44 years old, the dummy on the left-hand side, and his stepmother, Ornelie, Ornelie, Charles, who's 42 years old. Let me back that up. 42. Like, she looked like I would have gave her maybe 20 more years. Stick 20 more years on top of that. She looked like she like 64. But she 44. I guess black do crack, y'all. Black do crack, apparently. Anyway, they were both arrested for her death. In a press release on Friday, PGPD said they believed that the 5-year-old girl was injured while in the care of Delinois and Charles. Both of them have been charged with child abuse resulting in death and neglect of a minor. Now, Charles faces an additional charge of assault. So that's the alleged stepmom. During questioning, Pradel, the dad, informed authorities that the 5-year-old started to have stomach pain and nausea around a week prior to her death. Let me stop it right there. I get so pissed off reading this stuff. Every single time, these fools try to make it seem like these children something just magically out of nowhere, my stomach hurt, and then they just die. They just fall over. They done fell off the toilet. They dead, or they were in a bathtub and died. Like, it's always something. They're always blaming it on the kids like they don't know what happened. Y'all notice that? Probably 100 stories this year on my channel could be attributed to the parents blaming it on the kids or the caretakers blaming it on them. We don't know what happened. The child was taken to a medical clinic where a prescription for OEMazole was filled. Sorry, not the brightest crayon in the box. It was later learned that before receiving the medicine, Pradeline was also vomiting off and on, and that it persisted even while taking the medicine for treatment. On the day of her death, Pradeline's 15-year-old stepsister found her unresponsive. After Charles unsuccessfully attempted to wake the child up by splashing water on her face, 911 was called and CPR was performed by the sister. Guess the only thing that's missing that would make this similar to most other stories is if they would have put her in a bathtub to allegedly revive her. That's the only thing that's missing. At the hospital, nursing staff observed a scratch above the child's left eye and bruising on the body consistent with child abuse. Dr. Francisco Diaz of the Office of Chief Medical Examiner in Washington, D.C., performed an autopsy of the child and determined the manner of death to be homicide through multiple blunt force injuries. She was beat up. She was beat to death. It was determined that the injuries were indications of abuse and not from vigorous CPR. So they tried to say that they were trying to give her CPR and that's how she got all of these bruises. Nope, not at all. Pradeline, 5-year-old girl, was observed to be very underweight. Sounds like they might have been starving her. To be very underweight and wearing a soiled pull-up diaper further supported the signs of abuse, according to Diaz. These kids deserve so much better, man. The autopsy also reported trauma to the body, including rib fractures, pulmonary contusions, adrenal gland contusions, lacerated liver, muscular contusions above the cranial cavity, blood in the abdomen and chest cavities, and multiple contusions on her left arm. You just can't be that level of dumb to have that much evidence against you and you still come up with the dumbest story possible about how this abuse occurred. They beat her. They literally beat her to a pulp. That's exactly what that is. She got it from us giving her CPR. Really? So how did her head get cracked? Just, it does no good to ask questions, I guess. WUSA 9 spoke with the neighbors about after officers found Pradeline, who said the child lived with her father and stepmother, along with a sister and infant child, and it's unclear who those siblings are staying with now. I'm wondering where's the biological mother in this situation. How the dad had custody makes you wonder, where's mom? Where's the biological mom? What happened with that situation? I would just like to know. We always ask, when mom has custody and this happens, where's the dad? So yes, we could ask where the biological mom is. Clearly that woman didn't love that kid because that little girl probably looks exactly like her mother. And that reminds that woman of who that man had prior to her. That's why this whole stepmom, stepdad, baby mama, baby daddy, dating people, bringing people around your kids can be a dangerous thing, period. It's just not a smart thing to do. I really think that if you already have kids, I think the last thing you probably need to be doing is dating, let alone bringing them around your kids. I've said that many times before, and I've thought about it. I had time to marinate on it, and I was like, yeah, I like what I said. I stand by what I said. I still think it makes sense. But anyway, anybody with information is asked to call PGPD Homicide Unit at 301-516-2512. Callers who wish to remain anonymous may call Crime Solvers at 866-411-TIPS or 8477, or go online at pgcrimesolvers.com or use the P3 Tips app. It would be nice if people saw something and said something, but we don't get a lot of that. Here's a couple of news videos. Let's get it. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use. It is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107. I think baby Pradeline, 5-year-old little girl, needs her story told and needs her story shared. So if you watch this video, you could always help us. Simply click that thumbs up. I say that every video, but I want to continue to encourage and just remind people, because sometimes people forget to just look, oh, I didn't click the thumbs up, and click it. Share this video, okay? Here we go. Let's get it.
Well, this is another tough story to have to share with you. An update in the death of a 5-year-old girl in Prince George's County. Police say the little girl's father and stepmother are charged in the case. The child, Pradeline-Delinois, died from blunt force trauma. She was found unresponsive in a home in Capitol Heights last week. Her father, Pradeline-Delinois, and stepmother, Ornelie Charles, are both charged with child abuse and neglect.
Earlier this week, we got a tragic update when Prince George's County Police said that the death of a 5-year-old girl was now being ruled a homicide. Tonight, a step closer to justice for that little girl. We're learning about arrests in that case that are hitting really close to home. Dave Laval joins us from Capitol Heights, where all of this happened. Dave, this is a bit of a surprise as to who police arrested in this case.
No question about that, Joseph. We are on Cumberland Street at Drum Avenue, where Pradeline-Delinois lived with her family and, unfortunately, where she also died a week ago. Detectives announced this week the D.C. coroner ruled the death as a homicide. Well, Prince George's police have now arrested the girl's parents and charged her with her death. The child's father, 44-year-old Pradeline-Delinois, is charged with child abuse resulting in death and neglect of a minor. The stepmother, 42-year-old Ornelie Charles, is also charged with both crimes and an additional charge of assault. Capitol Heights police responded to the family's home on Cumberland Street August 18th. Pradeline was rushed to a D.C. hospital where she died. Acting Police Chief Daryl Morgan said new information showed a history of abuse involving the child.
From what I understand preliminarily, there is some history of child injury prior to this incident. I'm not specific on all the details, but there were some injuries that the child experienced earlier in the year. That's what I'm aware of.
Morgan said it's not uncommon for prior incidents of child abuse to remain hidden until there's a major injury or death, which unfortunately happened here.
News 4 obtained the charging documents for the arrests in this case, and some of the details are pretty disturbing. The autopsy report stated that 5-year-old Pradeline-Delinois was suffering from broken ribs, a lacerated liver, and lung contusions. And as you can imagine, those details were difficult to hear for a neighbor who lives right next door.
But I never would have expected that. I'm sorry.
You had never heard anything, seen anything?
No. We just ended after the 4th of July out there.
Yvette Darrington has lived near Pradeline-Delinois and Ornelie Charles since 2019. The two are charged with abuse resulting in the death and neglect of a minor, and Charles faces an additional assault charge.
The cause of death was ruled a homicide, and the circumstances was blunt force trauma.
On August 18th, police were called out to the 5100 block of Cumberland Street in Capitol Heights for reports of an unresponsive child. Pradeline was rushed to a hospital in D.C. where she later died. According to the charging documents, police interviewed Pradeline's stepsister. She was the one who found her unresponsive and called 911. The documents state, quote, the stepsister adamantly denied ever hitting or placing her hands on the decedent. She did state that she had, in the past, witnessed defendant 2, which is Pradeline's stepmother, grab the decedent and hit the decedent while complaining about her crying, end quote.
It is absolutely heartbreaking for us to see something like this occur, and this type of tragedy is unacceptable.
And police are saying that if you suspect a child is being mistreated, that you report it to them as soon as possible.
Meantime, in Prince George's County, police investigating the death of a 5-year-old girl. Homicide investigators descending on a Capitol Heights neighborhood after learning of that death last week.
Fox 5 Sierra Fox live in Upper Marlboro with more details on how that child died. Sierra. The D.C. Chief Medical Examiner's Office says 5-year-old Pradeline-Delinois died as a result of blunt force trauma. Today, I asked Prince George's County Police what type of injury she sustained and where on her body. They couldn't specify, citing an ongoing investigation.
It's always sad to hear about a child dying. So, no one wants to hear about any death, particularly definitely not a child.
Take a look here. Today, I spoke with the victim's father, Pradeline-Delinois, outside their home on Cumberland Street. I asked what happened, and he wouldn't provide any information. All he said is that they're doing the best they can during this time. He did mention detectives took his phone. I also knocked on the door to see if anyone else would answer inside, but did not get a response. Neighbors did not have any insight into the situation, besides seeing police cars, which they say is typical in the neighborhood. Officers found Delinois unresponsive inside the residence last Thursday around 10 at night. Delinois was taken to a hospital in D.C. where she was pronounced dead. I asked police if the home was broken into, and they said there are no signs of forced entry. I also asked if this was a domestic situation, and police couldn't reveal those details. They also wouldn't say who was home during the homicide. At this time, no arrests have been made. Of course, Fox 5 will keep up to date with the very latest. Back to you.
As far as my opinion, the only thing I could see being a suitable punishment so it sounds like the stepmom was the one that beat the girl to death. And the fact that he was there to witness it, knew it was going on, and knew that it was happening, I'm going to assume that there's just no way you don't know what's going on with your baby. Because if you don't know what's going on with your baby, then your baby shouldn't be around people that you don't know what's going on with your baby, if that makes sense. But I don't know how many years in prison you give him, but I think that the stepmother, based on what I understand from the details in this story, probably deserves a life sentence, and I think that he should probably get at least half of that. But we'll see what happens, and that's the only other thing we'll probably update in this story. But let me know what you guys think. Like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment and tell me what you guys think about this story. If there's something I missed, you could also let me know also. But let's have a real conversation about this and keep these children in your prayers because they need it. So let me get back to that baby girl's picture one more time. Pradeline, young princess. R.I.P.